Good afternoon. This is Qtv Midday News coming to you from our studios on Kairaba Avenue, and I am Ashma Uba. Thanks for joining us. Here are the main news headlines. A 10-member council of the Ecowas Regional Competition Authority was sworn in on Wednesday during a ceremony in the Gambia. C3G Gambia, with support from the Q Group Foundation and other partners, will conduct free cancer screening for about 600 women in the Central River region in commemoration of Pink October. The National Assembly members have praised the report presented by the Gambian delegation to the third ordinary session of the Pan-African Parliament held in South Africa. In international news, as the Republic of Guinea marks 66 years of independence yesterday, we look at the country's path from its first president, Sékou Touré, to the military regime now under Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya. And in sports news, the Senegalese Football Federation has not renewed the contract of the national team head coach Aliou Cissé after his contract ended with the Teranga Lions. Now, those and other stories coming up. Do stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us. A 10-member council of the Ecowas Regional Competition Authority, tasked with promoting fair market competition in the sub-region, was sworn in on Wednesday during a ceremony in the Gambia. The event was presided over by Dr. Omar Aliou Touré, President of the Ecowas Commission. Aliou Cissé has the rest of that story.
The inauguration of this Ecowas Regional Competition Authority Council marks a major step towards advancing regional integration and fostering fair competition across West Africa. With 10 members drawn from different countries, the Council is expected to play a vital role in guiding the implementation of competition policies, reviewing commercial activities, and enforcing competition regulation to ensure a level playing field for businesses throughout the sub-region. Dr. Omar Aliou Touré, the President of the Ecowas Commission, said regional economic integration remains a key priority for his office, just as it was for the founding members of the sub-regional bloc in 1975. He said the establishment of the ECOWAS Regional Competition Authority, which has its headquarters in the Gambia, is to promote trade, investment, and sustainable economic development in West Africa through a conducive environment. President Touré urged the Council to approach its mandate with utmost honesty and professionalism.
With the establishment of the ERCA Council, we can only welcome the progress made in setting up and operationalizing the regional competition framework, which will help to address the region's challenges in enhancing intra-community trade and regional value chain development. These challenges, some of which are structural and/or policy related, include the following: barriers to competition. These include anti-competitive behavior by market participants, anti-competitive regulatory barriers, attitudes that hinder the effective development and implementation of competition policies, and the lack of adequate institutions for their implementation. To date, 5 ECOWAS countries do not have competition legislation.
Deputizing for the Gambia State Minister Babakar Ujuf, the Gambia's Energy Minister Nani Juara hope the Council will help facilitate fair trade in the sub-region by ensuring markets function efficiently.
As we embark on this important endeavor, we acknowledge the diverse economic landscapes that exist within our region. We understand that promoting competition is not only simply about enforcing rules. It is about creating an environment where businesses can thrive, fostering innovation, and empowering consumers to make informed choices.
The nomination and selection of the council members are guided by the mandate of the authority to enhance regional competition rules. Dr. Julia Tomasi Anokie, the only woman in the council on behalf of the council members, expressed readiness to deliver to the expectation of the ECOWAS Commission.
We also remain aware that ERCA's area of action is the ECOWAS Common Market, and that the treatment to be given to undertakings must reflect this regional market dimension and contribute to the
The Gambia's national team coach Jonathan McKinstry is due to reveal the names of his squad for the next round of AFCON qualifiers, a double-header matches against Madagascar. Let's now join our colleague Mamadou Gajaga at the GFF House for the latest on this.
This international window. So beginning with the goalkeepers, we're maintaining the goalkeepers from the last camp, so Ibrahima Georgiou, Lamine Seydi and Sheikh Sibi. In defence, we're having Ibu Toure. We welcome back Jacob Mendy, Joseph Cisse, Daddy Doudou Gueye, Mamadou Lion Njai, Omar Colley and James Gomez. In the midfield, Alassane Mane, Mamadou Badjo, Saidou Khan, Ebu Adams, Ibrahima Darbo. In the forward positions, Moussa Barrow, Ablai Jallow, Aliou Fadera, Yankuba Minte, and coming for the first time, Suleiman Kamara. And in the striking positions, Abdoulaye Cisse, Ali Sow, and we welcome back Mohamed Badamosi. So that's the 23-player squad. Like we said, we're very sort of happy with it. It's great to have someone like Jacob Mendy coming back in after his injury, and also quite excited for the Gambian supporters to see young Suleiman Kamara of Racing Santander in La Liga 2 in Spain. So an exciting young winger who we think can give us some good options. So that's the squad, guys. I'm open to any and all questions, so you can fire away.
All right. So you will first introduce yourself, your medium, and you ask the question. So we start with you, lady.
I did not hear the name of the brand actually, and I've been reading his here because he's been injured and he's also having playing so why is his name not on this one?
So it's very simple for Ibrahima. I was actually at the Young Boys Barcelona game a couple of days ago, and Ibrahima and I have been speaking over the last week or two. Basically, Ibrahima is requested to not be considered for this camp alone because he has some personal issues that he really needs to attend to. And even speaking with his club Young Boys, they're aware of that. I'm not going to go into deeper context on them because personal things are personal things. But we've had good conversations. I met with him for 30 minutes on Tuesday night. And he's fully committed to us in the longer term, but he really does need a little bit of time to sort some things out. So in any other situation, he would have been in the squad, but he made a personal request not to be considered for this camp, and he's looking forward to hopefully being back in November.
Yes. My name is from Sky TV. So this is a very crucial, that is Monday 3 and Monday 4. We have this if you look at your previous games, you play fine football, but you don't score first. Sometimes they will score you for honest. But this crucial game might be for my week. This is very important. How are you going to grab those type of things? You score first, and you try and defend your so how are you going to prepare for this? It's an important game. So you play honest football. Sometimes you will score, but at the end of the day, you still are going, but you will consider it. At the end of the day, it's not a good fight. So how are you going to take this game? Like leading and try to pocket your opportunities?
Yeah. Late additions. So it's a good question. Thank you. So there's things we're happy that have been going on in recent matches. There's things that we are frustrated with. So I think, as you've said, some of the football we've been playing, me as a coach, I don't want to speak for other people, but as a coach, one of the things you like to say is, hey, I like watching my own team play. Sometimes when you're with a team that have to, play negative football, to use that term, it's not even as a coach as enjoyable to watch. But for us, we're liking a lot of the stuff we're seeing on the field. For me as a coach, I enjoy watching the guys play, which tells me what we're doing in training is quite good. But we need to be cleaner around the penalty box. There's no doubt about that. We're creating a lot of chances. Our passes into the final third, our box entries, our expected goals are all a lot higher than they've been over recent years. But we have to convert the chances. Okay, and so definitely looking into this training camp, we're pleased that the game falls on a Friday this time and not on the Wednesday like the last time. Prior to playing Comoros, we had one training session together as an entire squad. Whereas this time we're going to have at least 3 with everybody there and an additional 1 with about 70% there. So we believe that extra time is going to help that connection just to make sure we get the shots on target and we convert those chances we're creating. So that's the first thing. Defensively, the one big area that we need to tidy up on is set pieces. When you look back to June, we conceded a set piece in both games from deliveries. So there were crosses into the box or a corner kick. And we said, okay, we need to tidy up on that. And actually in the last camp we did. Any balls played in from like delivered set pieces, we dealt with absolutely fine in the last camp. The problem that came in September, however, was direct free kicks were our undoing. But you can't concede a set piece in every game and hope to be successful. In open play, we're not conceding that many chances. That's not saying we're not conceding any. There are some, but look, if you want to be a front foot team playing, a pressing, sort of toe-to-toe type of football, you are going to give up some chances where players, your goalkeeper's expected to make a good save, defenders are expected to defend well 1v1, etc. We know this. This isn't a mistake. This is something that will happen in this style of football. And so we've been generally probably about 85–90% satisfied with the defensive structure, but we need to tidy up set pieces. If we're conceding set pieces, it's like a free goal for the opponent. So yeah, we need to be tidier around our attacking, just in the final 20 meters, and we need to be just better organized in those defensive moments from set pieces.
Okay. Yes. Wait for the mic.
Okay, I go by the name Swear from Qtv Midday. Just as my colleague said here, the members are very pleased with the style of play you come. This is what we have been looking for, to see our players set themselves out to the world. Understand? But then this question raised in Gambians community, like in the case of the Gambian block football lovers, racing and we will not take outside. Your first game against Comoros, you have a midfielder who played very well, that was Adams. And your second game, it was nowhere to be seen. Understand? If you could explain like what was the behind of it, because most Gambians we are saying it is happening in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it was injury. He didn't play. He didn't start the game against Tunisia because of injury. So Ebu didn't train the 2 days before the Tunisia game. So we played against Comoros. Obviously, you saw him come out of the game quite late on against Comoros. He had a bit of a hip injury. So his hip injury meant that he wasn't able, his running mechanics were paining him. And so the days between the matches, and there was only 3 days between the 2 games, he was working with the physios every day. He wasn't working with the main group at all. And so the fact that we were able to have him on the subs bench against Tunisia was great credit to the medical team. And then he personally felt he was able to go in and give us something at the end of the game, but he wasn't in condition at all to play anywhere close to 90 minutes. So this is sometimes the things, and it's good that you asked the question, because sometimes people think, oh, we weren't happy with a player. We thought he did extremely well, and had he been fully fit, chances are he probably would have started the next game, but he just wasn't in physical condition to do so.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Coach, these 2 games against Madagascar are absolutely very crucial for Gambia to stand in a very good position in the group in order to qualify for the AFCON. You talked about giving opportunity to players who are in form. In this list, I would say it's good that we're having Mahmoud Bajo, who is absolutely playing very well for BAC 1904, and absolutely having the highest number of Gambian players out there who started and completed 90 minutes. And another youngster is Abdullah Sisi, who was there in the game against Comoros in Tunisia, but did not get the opportunity to play. In order for it not to be calling these players to come to the national team and be bench warmers and going back to their clubs, what will you do in order to integrate these youngsters who are absolutely in fine form for their clubs to the national team?
So I think everyone would agree that when you come into any team dynamic, you've got to get used to the way of working. You know, so whether you start a new job, that you have to work with other people. So in the media, you've got to work with other people. And your first day on the job, you maybe don't know everything that your new radio station or TV station do. And you've got to get used to other people before you hit top performance. Yeah, that would be an agreeable thing in most walks of life. In football, it's even more so because tactically, one team does not play the same as another team. Yeah, so if you look at Arsenal, they don't play the same as Manchester City or Barcelona. So when you move from one team to another, you've got to integrate into that. So when you have someone like Abdoulaye Cissé who comes into the national team, we were really pleased with him in the last camp. But he still is evolving and developing that connection with the teammates around him. Historically, for me, players who come to their very first national team camp don't usually get lots of minutes. Sometimes they do if they're a really high quality player, if they turn up and hey, they have a 10 out of 10 week and they're just the best player in the training sessions, then yes, they get their minutes. But the nature of football is it usually takes more than 2 or 3 days to integrate into a new team. Yes, all of these guys are Gambian, but that doesn't mean they know how to play well together yet. And so we're really pleased with Abdoulaye. And so do I expect he has a better chance of getting minutes in this camp compared to the last camp? Yes, because he will have had more time with his teammates. He'll know the passes people like to play. His teammates will know the type of runs he needs to play. Because you've got to remember, the guys like Ebu Adams or Musa Barrow or Ablaye Jallow, when they turned up on the Monday, Tuesday before we played Comoros, that was the first time any of them had ever played with Abdoulaye Cissé. And so you can understand that the connection isn't quite there yet. It's not a computer game. You don't just throw them out there. So, you know, the young guys, it's not a must that when you come to the national team, you play in your first camp. Sometimes it's about integrating, and over the long term, you become a really valuable asset for us. But like I said, that doesn't rule out, look, if someone turns up and they're just, you know, destroying it in training, then of course they play. Yeah, of course they play.
Yes, good afternoon. First of all, I am Bani Kaumar of Korai. Yes, I have to congratulate you having a player like Aliou Fadera, who scored on September 24th against Atalanta in a 3-2 win. Scored the winning goal for us. So I also congratulate you having a player like Ibrahima Koli, who scored for, he played for Barcelona, for Young Boys, BSC Young Boys against Barcelona yesterday in Montjuic. So congrats to have a player as a Gambian who played in the new UEFA Champions League format to have such a game. Though he was substituted, but he delivered. Yeah, away from there, on record, you played 4 matches. You won 1, you drew 1, you lost 2. Like you have 6 different goals for us. You also, 6 different goals for us from there. You also scored 9 goals. You conceded 7. Now, as it stands, it's like on records, things are not favorable. What are you doing? What do you have in place in order to make sure that like records will be beaten?
Like ultimately, the only thing you can do is chase performance in football. We always say in football that the result is something that lives out there that we don't have control over. You know, a result can happen for any reason. You can play the best game of your season and lose. You can play the worst game of your season and win. I think you've all seen this in football at all levels of the game. And so, as a team, we want to win as many games as we can. But we also know we don't control that. We don't control winning because it's not like when you have to go to your job. There's no one, for example, in your line of work stopping you from doing a news report. Yeah? Whereas in sports, you've got 11 guys trying to stop you from doing what you want to do. So for us, we just have to chase performance. We think the performances are moving towards where we want them to be. Like we've said before, there's a lot of good stuff we're seeing on the field. We're creating a lot of chances. It would be a lot more worrying if we were not creating the chances. If we were playing nice, passing, moving football, but we were not creating chances, that would be more of a concern. But we're creating chances, and when you create chances, you know that I've just got a feeling that there's a game coming up where we're really potentially going to blow an opponent out of the water, because we're doing a lot of the right things. We just need to add that final little bit of cleaner football in the final 20 meters of it, and we're going to start seeing big results. But also, you got to remember, is that comparatively, the last 4 games, you know, okay, we want them to be better, but I think in the previous, 8 games, there was no wins or something like that. So it was like 1 win in the previous 10, and no wins in the previous 5. So the fact that we've changed the playing system, the fact that we've brought in a number of new and younger players, and we've actually improved in general on the results compared to the previous sort of 12 months, we're taking positive steps, but that's not, we need it to be more. We always need it to be more, but performances are getting close to where we need them to be, and over the long term, if your performances are where you need them to be, results follow.
Coach, playing against Madagascar in a double leg, hugely important game. You do the maths. Should you win both games, it's going to be very, very good for you, good position in the group. How would you approach the game?
So I think the first thing, I agree. Look, they're important games. All games are important games, but we find ourselves, the group is sort of separated a little bit now. You have Tunisia sitting out on their own in first place, and we almost have like a mini league between Comoros, Madagascar, and ourselves. And so 2 games again, the next 3 games are very crucial, because obviously the next 3 games are twice against Madagascar, and then Comoros is the first game in November. So in essence, this is our little mini league. If we can win that little mini league, we're going to go to AFCON. Now, I think the first thing for us is psychologically to get this camp right, because it's not, historically, African football has done home and away games, you know, like a knockout system. We've got to psychologically make sure the players and everyone involved is super clear, hey, these are not home and away like you win on aggregate. We've got to try and win each game on its own merits and then put it away. So it doesn't matter if we win the first game 50-0. You still have to go and do it again to win the second game. So I think psychologically I've seen that before when you play the same team twice in a close space of time, that sometimes people put the games together almost as one big game. It's not. So we've got to get that psychologically correct. And if we do that, the quality in our squad, I think, is enough to win the matches. But look, Madagascar are coming in at the same point. It's no point us saying, hey, you know, we need to want it more than the opponent, because does anyone in this room think that Madagascar don't want to win the games? Of course they do. They're going to do everything they can, because they also know that if they win football matches, it puts them in a very good position to qualify. So we've got to go out, we've got to play to our maximum in terms of what effort and energy we put into the game, but we also have to be smart about it. We've got to play with intelligence, and if we do that, then I think we're going to be in a good position. Microphone.
Coach, we've seen in the last games, you've played extremely well in terms of going forward, chances created. But at the other end, you've seen us concede goals either on set pieces or cutbacks where either the holding player or supported holding players miss tackle in this position. And also, we went to say from AFCON to date, we've
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. Obviously, one of the things I think maybe we're a little bit late in. So we said about defensively, we've got to tidy up on set pieces. But it's interesting because in the two camps we've done so far, it's been two different issues in set pieces. Because in the first camp, the issue was defending crosses, which we worked on a bit in the second camp in the short time. And actually, that was not an issue at all from set pieces against Comoros or Tunisia. From corners and from wide delivery free kicks, we were pretty comfortable. So we nailed that issue that had presented itself in June. But then a new issue cropped up was the direct free kicks, that maybe the organization of the wall, the numbers in the wall, the numbers marking for the second chance, wasn't as tidy as it needed to be and as clear as it needed to be. So all set pieces, but actually two different issues arised in June and in September. But we need to be tighter on that, because for me, I'm a big person on set pieces. You know, if you look at my teams in the past, we score a lot of set pieces and we don't concede many. And so to have conceded a set piece in every game is something we need to do a lot better on, and we're going to be, again, putting a big emphasis on it in this training camp to make sure, because if we cut those 4 goals out, we probably have a lot more points than we otherwise would have, you know what I mean? And so that's a big thing. And for me, you know, it's interesting, you know, you're asking about specific player sort of profile roles. But if I were to ask everyone, we must have 25, 30 people in this room. So you talk about, you know, a number 6. If I ask everybody in this room to write down the qualities of a number 6, I think we would have 25 pieces of paper with 25 different profiles written on it, because there's lots of different number 6s. I think, you know, in Ebu Adams, I think we've got a very good guy who can play in that role. Obviously, we welcome Saidou Khan and Mamadou Badjo into this squad as well. Both of them have the potential to play in that deeper role because they can be aggressive to win the ball. But what we want is players who can play both sides of the game. You know, we don't want someone who can just tackle and do nothing else, because when you win the ball, you need to have the ability to play the passes forward, to make the runs. And it's the same. You talk about, you know, you asked a question about more defensive players on the pitch. But what does that mean? You know, because does that mean players who can protect their own penalty box? But then are they able to go and press the game? You know what I mean? You can't have, in football, you cannot have everything. You cannot be a team who don't allow space behind you and go and press high. You have to choose. Do you want to go and press high, or do you want to sit in a low block? You can't play a low block and a high block at the same time. And so for us, we make choices about how we play. I think you saw over the last 2 games how those choices can be modified, not changed, but modified, because the height of our team in terms of playing position on the field against Comoros was different than it was against Tunisia. In Tunisia, we dropped off a little bit more. We didn't go into a low block, but we probably came back 15 meters on the pitch. And so it's about having guys who can play both sides of the game, offense and defense. It's about guys who ultimately work for each other as well, because, you know, you're not going to say to a number 6, hey, you've got this 15 by 15 box, never leave it. Because sometimes he's got to leave it. He's got to go and deal with a problem or an opportunity. And when he does that, someone else needs to be intelligent enough to come in and cover that space. So, you know, for me, I like what we've got. We've got some really exciting young players who are going to come through and push some of the senior players as well. But you also got to remember, international football is not club football. If you were the coach of Real Madrid and you needed a certain type of profile in a player, you simply get your checkbook out and say, here's 100 million euros, I want to bring that player to my club. You don't get to do that in international football. You get to assess what is available to you and use what you think can come together in a good way. Okay?
My name is Michael from Qtv. Previously, on the presses that we have with you here, you said that no player signed a contract with the national team.
Yep.
That warrants to be called on all games.
Yep.
We've seen today, you called 23-man squad. Last time you called 24-man squad. And you said on record that it is was overloaded in the sense that you were 25 players there. After Ibrahim Adabo, who was declared injured, was spotted playing 90 minutes for his club with a rating of 7.2. Later, he called back to the national team that overloads the normal number. If you can set more light on that for the general public to understand, as a coach, what overloads that squad, and you call the list and you say some players are left behind due to injury, and our role and responsibility is to give the public the facts. Can you kindly tell us the players who are injured for the general public?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I think it's important for people, because your question in essence is poorly constructed, because I'm sure you know the CAF rules, that the squad size for CAF to be summoned is 25. So anything under 25 is actually underloaded. Would you agree with that? You know, so actually when when the referees come to do like their match day -1, they want to see the passports, it's 25. So you're allowed 25. On match day, you're allowed 23. But for a squad of available players, you're allowed 25. So anything under that is just us thinking, do we need 25, or do we want to spend the budget on something else? Maybe we want to stay, have a better training ground, so we invite 23 or 24 instead of 25. That's decisions that we make. So we've never had an overloaded squad. In essence, we always underload it a little bit, which gives us flexibility when something changes to make decisions. Now, you asked specifically about Ibrahim Darbo. So leading into the last camp, if you looked at, they played on Tuesday and then they played on Saturday. So on the Tuesday, so you mentioned the game he played on the Saturday, but you didn't mention the game he played 5 days before, where he came out of the game after, was it 30 or 40 minutes, with a subluxated shoulder. So I don't know if you know what a subluxated shoulder is. It's not quite a dislocation. It's where your shoulder comes out of its socket, but in the moment, your ligaments sort of pull it back in. Yeah? So it's not a nice injury. It's pretty painful, but it's not a full dislocation. So on the Tuesday, Ibrahim subluxated his shoulder, and we got the information about that, and he was going for scans and discussing treatment options. He obviously didn't train for the 2 or 3 days, and we obviously then have to name a squad. So on the Wednesday, I think on the Thursday, in fact, we name a squad. Ibrahim had subluxated his shoulder on the Tuesday. He did not train on the Wednesday or Thursday, and it looked like he was going to be out. He, however, did then attempt training on the Friday at the request of his club coach, heavily strapped, and he played and played well, even under a little bit of pain, on the Saturday for his club, Frosinone. Me and Ibrahim had a conversation, and I said, look, how does it feel? Do you think it's okay? And he was like, well, it's a little bit uncomfortable, but I didn't think I'd be able to play, even for his club, but I was able to play for 70 minutes. And so, yeah, as long as it's well strapped, it's okay. And so that made the decision easy for us. We'd given ourselves a little bit of flexibility in the squad, and we invited him to come. And then he came and, did quite well in the game. So for us, this is the stuff, and look, I don't expect people outside the room to see these things. This is information that as a coach, as a federation, we've got to deal with, because things change, you know what I mean? Somebody wakes up in the morning and has a bad illness. You didn't know that the day before, you do know it the next day, and you got to make decisions. So with Ibrahim, looked like he wasn't going to be ready. That changed pretty quickly. He was ready, he wanted to come, he came, he was a valuable part of the squad. You ask about this camp, who is out injured. So Hamza Barry, unfortunately, went for a scan on his hamstring yesterday. There's a little bit of blood showing on the scans. I spoke to him this morning. He's not going to be in his match day squad, or at least he maybe is on the bench tomorrow. But yeah, the hamstring's not in a great position. He needs to rest and recover. He's out. Alassane Diatta is a player that we would like to have in this squad. However, there's a couple of things with Alassane. You've seen he's been in and out of his team at Notts County recently. He suffered a pretty heavy concussion a few weeks ago, and it meant he's been out. He sort of came back a bit too early a couple of weeks ago, and then he was out again for 2 games, and then he played again 2 days ago and got the goal. Alassane, First of all, was his head, the concussion was a proper concussion. So a few weeks ago, the concussion, I'm pleased to say, has recovered. He's not getting headaches anymore. However, because he's not really played a lot in the last few weeks, you might have seen, and if you watched the game for Notts County, he came off of heavy cramp. And so again, Alessana and I had a good conversation where he just doesn't feel he's at 100%. And he would rather wait until he's 100% before he comes, which he knows is stepping up a level to play for the Scorpions. You know, it's a higher level than at Notts County. And so we decided this camp not quite yet because he's not 100%. I'm trying to think who other injury-wise there is. Just some players who are out who have been involved recently. Seni Sanyang is fit, but since the last camp hasn't played any minutes for his club side. Adama Sidibe obviously has done really well for the Scorpions recently, but hasn't played a single minute due to suspension at St Johnstone. He got a red card and has been out suspended, so he's out. I'm trying to think, is there any other obvious ones that you want me to comment on? There's only a few injuries. It's more the guys who are missing out's more about they haven't been getting the minutes we would like them to get. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Coach. My name is Padoro from Unveiling. I would like to ask a couple of questions, if time permits. First of all, I would want you to talk about the tactical approach of the game because that would be a very good thing for the Manchester. Probably you will use voting the best proposal. But technically, when you look at the team, you talk about the midfield 6-4. I think that is a position that we definitely need to identify in order to find a solution to the goals that we are considering, the number of goals that we have done recently in the past months. Going into this Madagascar game, what do you think we definitely need to do in order for you to understand the staff to tackle that area? The number of goals that we consider, what expects that we set pieces in the way to be able to find a way. Do you think going into this Madagascar game, by looking at the number of squad that you have young players, the absence of the Hansen, you'll be able to find a solution over that area? Another thing is that we're talking about like the left back role, the natural left back role. Sini has been doing fantastic work for his club. He's not part of the squad. Is it that he's injured or he's not ready for the selection?
Well, so you obviously didn't listen to the last answer. So Saini hasn't been in his match day squad for CSKA Sofia for about 6 weeks, which is very frustrating for us because prior to the September camp, Saini was getting really good minutes at CSKA Sofia. But since, and even for us, he came in and has been, you know, the numbers he's been posting in terms of the training sessions, we've been really pleased with for a young guy. But since he's went back to his club, I think they've played 5 games since the September international window, and he hasn't even been in the match day squad. So it's not even like he's been on the subs bench. So he's fit. He just hasn't had any involvement whatsoever at CSKA. So that made the decision there. In terms of, and look, I know how people like to put questions together, but, you know, you sort of asked there, what are we going to do about the number 6 so we stop conceding set pieces? The number 6 is one of 11 people who helps us concede or not concede on set pieces. So, you know, the work's just got to be done on the training field with the goalkeepers, with the team to make sure we're well organized. Like we said already in the press conference, actually the type of set pieces we've conceded in June and in September were very different. And so we just need to tidy it up a little bit. But ultimately, the key thing for us, we need to convert our chances. You know, defensively, you know, we are creating a lot more chances than we're giving up. We just need to be more cleaner around the penalty box. If we do that, then we'll be winning a lot of football matches.
Coach. Okay. Yeah, last time you were saying you forgot to ask you one question. Yeah, the Gambian players that are able to play for both Gambia and a lot of countries. So concerning about this guy, I know he can fully he moved to BSK in Sweden, playing for Transfer in Sweden. That is Yusufa Salim. who turned down to play for Senegal for the upcoming World Cup. No, just the same one who Liberia. But now he decided to play for Ghana. Have you been contacting him for him to change his mind? Be part of the Ghanaian national team?
Yeah, so look, Yusuf is a young player who's got a lot of talent, and also I know the real story about the Wafu, which isn't what you've said. So, obviously you're aware that he's just got his work permit over where he is, and when you're doing paperwork and stuff, you're not necessarily advised to travel, which had a bit of influence on competitions that he did or didn't participate in. But look, he's a young player who's breaking through. We are monitoring him. We've been in contact with all players who are eligible. So with Yusufa, I've been in contact with him. I'm not going to tell you what those conversations have been, but regardless, I would also suggest at this exact moment in time, he's not ready to play senior international football given just the experience he needs to gain. He's only just landed at his new club in Europe, yeah? And so now he has a lot of quality to him, as do many players. It's the same. You watch the U20s playing in the Wafu recently. There's kids in there who have a lot of quality to them. But are they ready to step up and play for the senior national team? Not everybody who has quality and has a good 90 minutes or gets a good transfer is ready to immediately be parachuted into the national team. So Yusuf is a player who we've been in contact with, and we're monitoring him, and we'll see what the future holds for him. He's a kid who has decisions to make, and yeah, we'll see what those decisions are as we move forward.
Now we take 2 more questions and we close the press conference. We've been here for like 45 minutes now.
Well, thank you very much, Coach Hamid again. Looking at the past 2 games against Ecowas and Tunisia, we're all talking about the goals that we conceded on set pieces or so. But one fundamental aspect in those 2 games were, of course, our finishing. We played very well. We created so many numerous goal-scoring chances, but we absolutely did not take many of the chances that we created. Is it down to the players being so much under pressure, not relaxing in front of the ball to take those chances? If that's the case, how much work are you going to put in place when these players come together to ensure that when we play, we take our chances? Because after those games, during the press conference, images coming out, you could see from your face that we are absolutely disappointed in the chances that we failed to take. Another question is, looking at these windows for the qualifiers for either the Cup of Nations or the World Cup, right now in the Gambia we absolutely have very good players who are not able to all fit into this 23-man or 35-man. Will you engage the football authorities and the government to ensure that wherever there is an international window for test games, Gambia plays test games for you to be able to see most of these youngsters play competitive games for their national team?
Yeah. So I think firstly, everybody, it's not just me, who is disappointed that we're not scoring more goals. The players themselves are disappointed because, you know, at club level, some of our players are in hot form at club level. But look, I said this earlier in the press conference, I'm really pleased that the game is on Friday. Last time when we play on Wednesday, that connection just doesn't quite develop as much. You know what I mean? It's a bit like, and I know you guys might say, oh, but, you know, Musa Barrow and Ali Sow have known each other played together for 10 years. But it's a little bit like, say you owned a car 5 years ago, yeah? And you haven't driven it for 5 years, and you've been driving a completely different type of car. Or maybe you've been driving a left-hand drive car for 5 years, and all of a sudden you get back into a right-hand drive car. On day 1 and day 2, it feels strange, not so? It's like, oh, I need to get used to this again. It's the same thing when you come back to your national team, because you got to remember, every day in training, you know, Musa's training with his players in his club in Saudi, Ali's training with his players in Turkey, you know, Aliu in Italy, so they get used to all those movements and just the rhythm of the game. And then they come back together, and for the last camp, for example, leading into Comoros, they had one 55-minute training session to try to get used to driving the car again, yeah? And so you can understand why it's not maybe at 100%. And so For us, we're really pleased that the game's a bit later in the window. For me, I think all international games should be at their earliest on the Friday. I think playing an international match on a Wednesday is harmful to African football because we want our teams to go and play well at AFCON and World Cups, but the European teams don't play on a Wednesday. You don't see England or Spain being asked to play on the Wednesday after one day's training. They always play on the Friday, the Saturday, and then again on the Tuesday. Whereas for us, we're being asked to play on a Wednesday and then a Sunday, which means in the entire training camp, we had 3 training sessions. So this time we're going to have more. So we expect the connection between the players to be better against Madagascar, and we expect to be able to use that car analogy to really accelerate. Okay? You ask about test games. The nature of international football now is changing. If you can tell me, if you look at the FIFA calendar for the next 2 years, the only window that doesn't have competitive games in it at this moment in time is next June. Because we have games in October, no space for friendlies. November, no space for friendlies. March, no space for friendlies. Yes, June, there's nothing fixed because they had to move AFCON, okay? But FIFA also, because they've got their Club World Cup going on, they might say, hey, you're not allowed to play internationals in June. We don't know yet, okay? September, no space for friendlies. October, no space for friendlies. November is the playoffs. So depends if you're in the World Cup playoffs or not, if there's space for friendlies. So 10 years ago, there used to be space for friendlies. But now there's not. And you even see now that, okay, CAF don't have a Nations League yet, but what we have started seeing is the FIFA series, which you saw coming in March, where some teams go and play these little mini tournaments against, but again, they're semi-competitive. So yeah, there's not as much time for friendlies. And as a coach, that's frustrating. For a federation, that's frustrating. Because trust me, we want to play the games because we want to give these players an opportunity. But the calendar suggests we just don't have the space. So we'll do it when it's possible. But again, we're tied down to the time that FIFA allow us, and it's getting smaller and smaller every year.
Yes, your hand was up. And that's the final question, please. Yes.
Okay. One more time. Is the Madagascar game?
Sorry, say that again?
Yes, I say one more time. The Madagascar game is very, very important as far as the table standing is concerned currently. What do you think you will approach in this? What the Gambian people can expect from you and the Baton staff in these 2 important games in both home and away matches that will be played from home at this point in time? Madagascar game, double game. What do you think, or what do you expect that is going to be? You're going in for these very important matches, but those that are back home, fans are supporting them.
What they can expect is for us to try and take another few steps forward in terms of our progress. You know, I hope, for me, inside the room, we've seen a lot of progress in the last 6 months. You know, and again, we say 6 months, but when you put down the training days on the field, it's something like 9 training sessions. So the change between what the team was before to what it is now in 9 or 10 training sessions is really quite significant. We hope people feel good about that, but regardless, we can see the positive steps the team are taking. So we want to improve the performance yet again. And if we keep improving the performances, then over the medium and long term, we believe the results will take care of themselves. We know we need to get results against Madagascar, all being well. And so, yeah, we're just looking to go take forward our performances, play even better than we have in the last 4 games, and be a bit cleaner around the penalty box to score the goals, and be a bit better defensively at set pieces. And if we do those 2 things, then I think we're going to be in a really good situation after these games.
All right. I'm sorry we have to draw the press conference to an end now. We've been here for 45 minutes. It's been a very interesting chat that you have with the coach. And
well, that was the Gambia's national team coach, Jonathan McKinstry, revealing the names of his squad for the next round of the AFCON qualifiers. Well, I'm afraid that's all we have for you in this news bulletin. Join us again at 8 p.m. for more news. Thanks for watching.